Welcome to Living on the Edge. My name's Chip Ingram, and we're in a series called Good to Great in God's Eyes. And if you want to change, and if you really long to change, and you feel like you know God, but it just doesn't seem to work, this series may be very helpful for you. What I've learned is there's certain practices that great Christians have in common. We learned earlier they think great thoughts, they read great books, and then we began on pursuing great people. When you meet people that God looks down upon the earth and He sees a life of love and compassion, of holiness, winsome relationships, I mean, the kind of person that is great in His eyes, they not only think great thoughts and put good things into their mind and read good books, but they hang out with people. See, more is caught than taught. They hang out with people of faith. They hang out and rub up against people who have some convictions and some values that they don't just go into your head, they catch them in their heart. In our last broadcast, I talked about creating your own spiritual Mount Rushmore. And as we begin the teaching today, I'm going to finish that out. But I talked about a coach in junior high that taught me how to be a man. I talk about my sister who, I did not grow up as a Christian, never opened a Bible. But she, when she came to Christ, lived the kind of life that when I saw her, I thought, boy, I don't know what she has, but I want to be that kind of Christian if I would ever become a Christian. And then I talked about a bricklayer who really taught me what it meant to be a man of God. And in this session, I'm going to talk about the most important person that really has changed my life, is that's my relationship with my wife, Teresa. I'm going to challenge you, make your own spiritual Mount Rushmore. And then we're going to talk about 3 kinds of people that everyone needs in your life. You want to grow, you want to change. I'll help you discover who these people are and how to find them. Join me, won't you? More really is caught than taught. Who are the people in your Mount Rushmore? Mine was a coach, another my sister, another Dave, and the 4th over here is Howard Hendricks. And you've heard lots of stories, but I learned from Howard Hendricks that you could take your gift and you could dream a dream and you could have clear, I still can remember, I was just with him last week or so, and I can still remember on the board him writing objectives, priorities, schedule, discipline. God will never love you more than He loves you right now, gentlemen. It's a decent imitation. He said, but His blessing is dependent upon your obedience. You can never earn His favor. There's no brownie points, no gold stars on the refrigerators in heaven. But every man needs to make up his mind, what do you want to do with your life? So you need to have an objective and a target. You want to be a man of God? Determine, I want to be a man of God. And if you want to be a man of God, it has to be a priority. More important than anything or anyone else. And then you have to put that in your schedule and say, what does it look like? When will you get up? What will you read? What will you do? And then you got to discipline yourself to do it, not to earn anybody's favor but God's. Those 4 things. You know, Prof taught me that you're given gifts and life's a stewardship. And God really does want to bless ordinary people. Who's on your Mount Rushmore mentally right now? Who are those people? Because it's going to tell you where the needs surface. It's going to tell you what antennas, because those needs that those people met are going to be the needs also probably in the future. Well, I'm going to give you my last one. Right in the center where everyone else looks is the person who's impacted my life more than Howard Hendricks or Punky or Dave Marshall or Coach, and that is my wife. My wife has had more impact on my life than anyone else because she has more integrity. I live up close. She has more integrity than anyone I know. She has more devotion to God, evidenced by watching her get up for years and get up in the wee hours of the morning, even when we had small kids. And I've seen her on her knees, and I heard her cry out for God. And I've watched her pray, and I've watched her support me. She is more mentally tough than any player in any game on any team I've ever played on. And it's something I admire. There just ain't no give up in Teresa. And those of you that know her story, she was a single mom for a while. And she had a tiny little boy on each hip and no way to support herself and trying to figure out what to do. And she clung to God and came to Christ, and God supplied. And I'll tell you what, we've been through times digging quarters out of the back seat. You know, just not, $5, $6, $7, $8 in a co-op and taking the fruit and vegetables to live on. And you know what? I've never heard her complain about our lifestyle.
I've never, ever heard cry. You know, and so far, every time we move, she knows for sure it's God's will, and she knows she doesn't want to do it. I mean, it's just a pattern. Don't take me out to that little place. And she cried in the Chinese restaurant. And then when we went from Kaufman to all the way out to California, she and all the kids cried, all the way to Amarillo. And then when it was California back to Atlanta, she cried. And you know what? There's a lot of women who say, you know, honey, if you want to go, you just go ahead. You know, my family's here, things are here. My wife submits to God and does what he wants her to when it feels good and when it's terribly painful. And she's changed my life more than anyone else. She's filled the gaps and the wounds and the deficits more than anybody else. If you want to pursue great people, start first with your rearview mirror. And I would encourage you as just a little discipline. You can change the faces, you know. It's okay. But go through and jot down the 4 or 5 people that have most impacted your life, and you will begin to see exactly who God has used and likely the roles that he'll want to use in the future. Next, I encourage you to look out of the windshield of your life. And out of the windshield, we all need 3 kinds of people. And since Howard Hendricks was my mentor, I want to give credit here. This isn't from me, this is from him. But see, I caught it more than it was taught. And Prof. Hendricks would tell you and tell me we all need 3 kinds of people. Number 1, we all need a Paul in our life. We need someone to learn from. Second, we all need a Barnabas, a friend, a peer, someone to share life with, someone that you're just hand in hand, arm in arm. You know, you're on the same page, at the same level. And third, we all need a Timothy. We need someone that we're helping grow. A Barnabas, someone you share life with, a Timothy, someone that you give life to, and a Paul, someone who helps you. So let me ask you, you got a Paul in your life? You have a person in your life that is kind of a go-to person that helps you grow, that you know they're a few miles down the road spiritually than you, and you can talk to them and ask them and pray with them? Do you have a Barnabas? Do you have a soulmate? Do you have someone that you can just, you know, you're in this life together. You can pick up the phone and instantly you're on the same page? And then do you have a Timothy? Do you have someone that you are building into their life and praying by God's grace that what Dave did in my life and what Prof did in my life, they'll be in yours? I'll give you 3 quick examples because it's very rare to have ones that are in your life for a long period of time, right? We move. A lot of things happen. What I find is that Paul may be this person this year, another person 2 years from now, another person, and the different roles for different seasons of your life. And you know what? You might, but now and then, you get a Paul that sticks around and a Barnabas that sticks around and a Timothy that sticks around that I think is both rare and precious. And I've shared, and you know, my dad, we're real open about this. And, you know, we've had great talks and been able to share openly as we've grown. But I went to a little country church, and man, I needed a father figure. And there's a guy on the elder board there named AC. And he just took me under his wing. And we worked out together, and I shared struggles with him. My older boys were like 3rd grade then. And I've known him 22 years. I was 28 years old when I went out to that little church. You know how much that protects you? So you got to pursue great people. Got to go after them. You also need a Barnabas. I had a fellow that we just linked hearts, first basketball trip out, a guy named Glenn Miller. And Glenn was a man of devotion and heart and love, and he went off later to be a missionary in Sri Lanka, later became a pastor, and for 20 years, Glenn and I have stayed in touch, and he's just been a peer. He's a little bit older than me. He's like that little bit older big brother, but I was a little farther ahead early spiritually. And so the first trip we went on, we memorized the book of Philippians together. The next trip we went on, we memorized the book of James together. This guy's got zeal that is over the top. He talks about God like he's just in the room, and he's just winsome Barnabas. And what I know and what he knows is, no matter where we're at in the world or the country, it's just we're peers. Third area is Timothy, someone you get to invest in. And there was a guy who was a football coach in that little town, and AC had me and him meet together, and we'd review and memorize these verses. See, you do life together. The thinking great thoughts and, reading great books. I don't know about you. I'm not disciplined to do that. But you find a couple guys or you find a couple gals and you say, let's do it on this morning at this time. And we went to the feed store. And we'd eat a little breakfast and we'd all go over our verses and memorize a couple verses. And little by little by little by little, you grow. But you got to look out the windshield and ask yourself, who out there could be a Paul in my life right now? Who out there could be a Barnabas that I could share life? Who could be a Timothy that, and you know what? You only have to be a half a step ahead of someone to teach them what you know. You don't have to have it all together. Final thing I'd like to share here is get you started without getting you discouraged. And so I want to give a warning to heed. A warning to heed. And the warning is this, for Timothy's looking for Paul's. Often, God will use a variety of people. Don't believe there's some person that will have it all together that's going to be this person that is going to sustain and help you grow for the rest of your life. It'll be more like a revolving door of different people, different seasons to meet different needs as you grow. Now, sometimes you get that special person that, that you stay in touch with them. I think that's more rare than it is normal. But don't get expectations where you're asking someone or believing God's going to bring someone, they're going to be in your life. And for as much as prophets help me, I mean, it's not like we're on the phone every week. We're not on the phone every month. We're not on the phone sometimes for 7, 8, 9 months. He has a unique role and relationship that he speaks into my life at the right times in the right way. And I have a window or a door open that whenever I want to, I can call. So when you're looking for that Paul, don't get your expectations like they're going to meet with you every week and it's going to be this way or that way. Secondly, a warning for Paul's looking for Timothy's. You can't get where all you do is give. Some of you are in a season of your life where you're giving to people, you're giving to people, you're giving to people, but there's no one giving into you. And you find you can't figure out why you're losing the joy and you're tired. Because you know what? You got you need some VEP people in your life. Very encouraging people. When you're a Paul, when people are looking to you and you've hit a time of maturity and you're helping this guy over here in a Bible study with these women over here and then you're teaching over here and you're trying to raise this, you can give. And Paul's what happened is a lot of people really get burned out because no one's given to them. You don't give yourself permission to get renewed. You don't give yourself permission to have fun. You don't give yourself permission to let someone build into your life or have a few relationships. This is hard for some of you guys and some of you driven women. Have some relationships where you don't have to get anything done. You just get to hang out. Let me give you now a word of perspective to consider. Is that I think what happens is we get these categories, and I'm going to suggest that in every category of Paul's and Barnabas's and Timothy's is God often will give role players in your life. And I've put a few of them here. And I'll give you a couple highlights. And, they may be a Paul, but their role as a Paul is a father figure. That was AC for me. Huge impact in my life. But then some people, God gives you a cheerleader, someone who just cares and it gets excited for you. And I've got a guy here, is a fellow named Don Geiger. And I was a young guy in this church, and the little church was growing. It became a medium-sized church. And I had this dream in my heart, and I thought, I couldn't even say it out loud. I wanted to be the pastor of a large church. I remember saying out loud to Don Geiger, Don, I just feel so bad and so terrible because I've got this desire. And he says, well, why do you feel bad? Well, isn't that ambitious and isn't it wrong? He said, well, why do you want to be the pastor? Is it so you can be a big someone? Well, I said, no. I said, I just think that's where I would really flourish. He said, Chip, I get people calling all the time. He was a pastor of a large church. He said, they're really hard to find. It's a unique gift mix, and you have that gift mix. It's God calling you to do that. He was my cheerleader. He just said, go for it, man. And you know what? Within a year and a half, Santa Cruz called. But I couldn't have gone there if that cheerleader wasn't in my life. Sometimes God will bring a prophet in your life. A guy named Bill Lawrence. We went through a little thing Phil and I did at Dallas Seminary. And my wife and I sat in a little room, and he evaluated my preaching, and he looked me right in the eye. And he said, Chip, you've got some real gift. You got some real gift in communicating. Now I'm thinking, thank you. He said, but I can't figure out something. I said, what's that? He said, I can't figure out whether you're just downright lazy or you don't believe in preaching. I mean, a real man would never do that in front of your wife. I said, excuse me? He said, yeah, I just can't figure out. He said, I can see how your mind works. Oh, you do a good job with the text. The last 10%, you're just lazy. You're shooting shotguns. You don't shoot bullets. Tell you what, you need to put another 5, 6, 7 hours in on that last part of the sermon. It needs to be clear. It needs to be concise. It needs to be focused. You need to shoot a bullet, a Teflon bullet that, bang, goes through and God uses. And He's given you a gift to do that. You're shooting shotguns, little BBs. It doesn't take you much time to prepare. You like to study, but you're not doing the hard part at the end. Now, is it because you're just lazy or you don't believe in the power of preaching? And man, I'll tell you what, I decided that before God, I wrote on a card, my goal is to preach great messages for God. Does that sound arrogant? What do you think, God wants okay ones? Bad ones? So-so ones? And I decided whatever it would take for me to learn to preach great. And then I listened to people preach. I went to people who preached. I listened to tapes. I read books. And then I did that last 7 to 10 hours to get it from a shotgun to a bullet. Got any prophets in your life? People that aren't worried about offending you? See, there'll be Pauls at times, Timothys at times, but they're role players. See, God will bring people into your life that will sponsor you. But guess what? You got to pursue and get around people. Find great people who pray. Find people with great marriages. Find great leaders. Find people that are raising good kids. Find people that are doing the kind of things that you want to become like, and figure out a way to get next to them. Pursue great people. And God will bring sponsors and cheerleaders, and I think God wants a counselor in our lives, someone that you can open up your heart and share. And there's a guy named Dick Meyer. He was a counselor. And you know those wounds and those things we talked about? Sometimes you got to pursue a great person, you got to pay them. Because there's stuff you don't know how to figure out, and you got friends and they're counselors, and you just say, hey, I don't know. My ball is lost in the weeds, as Prophet would say, but I don't know how to get it untangled. And they sit down with you, and they share insight and life and truth. And which of those in that list do you need in your life? Then let me give you an action plan to go on. Number 1, an action plan to follow. I gave you a perspective to consider, role players, and now an action plan to follow. Number 1, pray earnestly. And we just learned what earnestly meant, right? I mean, I don't think these people are hanging on trees, and I'll guarantee you, their schedule is full. And so you pray earnestly, Lord, show me. Number 2, take initiative. I've just over the years, I just have an antenna. Well, as soon as I got to Atlanta, I thought, Lord, I got to find some guys that are walking with God. I got to find some guys that really love you. I got to find someone that, is farther down the road than me. And so within about a month, Andy and Stanley and I were on the phone. Randy Pope, pastor there right down the street. We got on the phone and got together a few times. He introduced me to an elder who lived down the street. And, I just started looking for, I know I need a cheerleader. I need a confidant. I need a sponsor. I need role players. I don't know if they're going to be my Paul, and I'm still going to call on the phone and actually arrange my schedule, but I've got to find people who are going to be a Paul in my life. And then I got to find some Barnabases. And then I got to ask myself, okay, it's a new world, it's a new day. Is there some people that you want me to invest my life in? But you take initiative. And 3, start in your relational network. We all want to go to, Dallas and say, well, Prof. Hendricks, will you meet with me? Answer is no. The Paul, Timothys, and Barnabases are probably already in your relational network. Start there. 4 is ask for help. This is amazing. It's sometimes we don't. I was just in Florida and had a chance to meet with some people who had been very kind and generous to the ministry, and there was a guy there that had been a mentor with a leader that I really respect. He's a Christian leader who I think maybe, just in terms of sheer leadership gift, maybe the finest that I know. I mean, I've read and listened, and this guy, I found out as we played 9 holes of golf, had mentored this guy, and he talked to me about it. And I just couldn't resist. I thought, I don't know what role he's going to play in my life, but you know what? If he mentored that guy, he's pretty good. So, I played golf, we had a dinner, and then I taught a Bible study, and I just You know what? You have not because you ask not. And I walked over to this guy, said, excuse me, John, can I get a word with you before I go? Got to catch a plane? Yeah. John, you know what you did for that guy? Yeah. Would you help me? This organization is growing so rapidly, I'm over my head, and he's in a way, way bigger organization that's way, way more complex. Would you help me the way you helped? If I called you, would you give me time on the phone, and if I asked you questions, would you help me? He said, I'd be glad to. And I said, great, well, I don't have any contact. And you know what? Someone else was talking, and this guy walks back to me, and he goes, here's my personal card, and here's my other card. And he said, just give me a call anytime. See, the kind of people that want God to use their life, they're looking for eager Timothys who want to grow and want to learn. Pursue great people. Pray earnestly, take initiative, start with your relational network, ask for help. Here's the one, persevere. They often say no 10 times before they say yes. I could tell you my Prof. Hendrick story. You don't want to hear it. I don't want to tell it. It took me 3 years. Persevere, persevere, persevere. Or do it by proxy. A lot of people that have mentored me, I can't get close to them, but they got tapes, they've got books, I've listened to them. I find someone close to them, I ask them questions. As the church was growing, I went around to every major place in America where things were growing, and I tried to get near the guy who did it, and if I couldn't, I got next to the guy who was next to him. If I couldn't, then I'd get, you know what? I'm going to get as close as I can, or I'm going to read what they wrote, or I'm going to listen to it, because there's a lot of different ways to keep growing. And finally, make time in your schedule. You'll never have it. This is kind of the quadrant 2 Stephen Covey stuff, isn't it? No one's going to call you on the phone and say, would you like to be mentored? Would you like to really grow? Would you like to put in some time and be very disciplined and very focused for the next 5 to 7 years that will totally transform your life and probably the life of your entire relational network and possibly could change the world in a radical way? No one is going to call you and say that. But you know what you can do? You can pursue great people. And you can look for your Paul, and you can look for a soulmate Barnabas, and then all the while you find someone that you have a little bit more than they have, and you start giving it away, and I'm telling you, you'll become great in God's eyes.
I want to thank you for joining our broadcast, and I want to jump right in, and I'm going to give you a couple assignments. And if you'll do them, I'm going to tell you God will do something special and powerful in your life. Assignment number 1 is I want you to make your own spiritual Mount Rushmore. It can be 4 people, or I cheated a little bit. I put 5 in mine. But who are the 5 people that have most influenced your life? And by way of review, you need to write that down because you'll see where and how God has worked in your life. And you know, you have baggage, I have baggage. My father was an alcoholic, a good man, a moral man. But he went through World War II and didn't process all that junk, and he didn't come to Christ until his mid-50s. And so most of my life, I grew up in an alcoholic family. Well, I've got baggage. That does some things to me, and you've got baggage in your life. God wants to bring people into your life in your new journey with Him to fill in some of those places. And so as I've shared, God has brought father figures and mentors and kind of experts and cheerleaders and counselors. But they don't just pop into your life. You need to pursue great people. And so assignment number 1, I want you to make your own Mount Rushmore and then jot underneath each name, what is it about that person that has really had an impact in your life? Second assignment, I want you to think through with me. Are you ready? Who's the Paul in your life? Who's the person who's your kind of spiritual mentor, your leader? Who are you learning from? Who are you growing from? And I will tell you, I don't think you ever outgrow this. Anytime even God has moved me, when I moved from Texas to California, I thought, Lord, I need a Paul, you know, maybe more than one of them. Who can I learn from? And then when I moved from California here to Atlanta, you know, I thought, God, I don't know very many people here. I need a wiser, older, more mature Christian that I can look to. And within the first week or so, I met a pastor in town who was the associate pastor that ran a huge church in town that was godly and wise, and I just could tell he knew a lot more about life in certain areas than I did. And you know something? It was just getting up that phone and saying, hey, could we meet together? Could we talk? And you need a Paul in your life, but you also need a Barnabas. This is that peer. This is that person that I talked about that you can unzip your heart, literally take your heart, put it out on the table, be absolutely vulnerable, and know that you're not going to be condemned, you're not going to be judged, but you get those secrets and you get those fears and even those temptations that you would never share with anyone else. And you got to be careful who this Barnabas is. This is a person that they love you and you love them, and you're going to go through life together. No one is, quote, more spiritual than the other person. You are peers. And I have some Barnabases in my life in Atlanta, but some that I've formed over the years, probably a week does not go by that I don't make a phone call and I ask the question, so, Steve, how are you really doing? Glenn, how are you really doing? And I invite them to ask that question of me. Do you have a Paul? Do you have a Barnabas? And then here's the last one. Who's your Timothy? And before you say, wait a second, I'm not very old in Christ, or I don't think I have very much to offer, you have something to offer that whatever little you have, you need to find that person who you can pour into their life. And, get your eyes open. Maybe it's someone in your Sunday school class. Maybe it's a Christian at work. Maybe it's someone that drives the carpool with the kids. Maybe you're at a soccer match, or maybe at a Little League baseball game, and you have a little connection with someone, and you find out that, they go to church, and they're actually a believer, and you just invite them over for coffee, or you say, would you like to take a walk? And these things don't have to be formal. You don't have to sign a contract and say, I'm the Paul, you're the Barnabas, or, will you be my Timothy? What you do in a natural way is you walk with God, and you say, Lord, I want to be teachable. Will you put someone in my life? Lord, I need someone to share life with, to process life with, to encourage life in a very deep level. And I need to give my life away. The things you've given to me in the presence of many witnesses, these entrust to faithful people who can then teach others also. Now, if you don't know where to begin, I encourage you, go to the website for free, and on the notes, I literally have like 6 or 7 steps that are, they're very pedantic, they're very clear, but you do them. Pray. Look in your own relational network. Ask God to show you who that person is. Test the water. Very practical ways where you can pursue great people. At the end of the day, here's what I can tell you. He who dwells with wise men will be wise, but the companion of a fool will suffer harm. If you want to be a great Christian, you want to be great in God's eyes, think great thoughts, read great books, and now pursue great people. You'll be glad you did.